for another Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and Monday evening, wherever you are in the world, how do you build a unicorn? That's it. That's all we're looking at. Remember, as always, two aspects we look at. Sometimes it's how do you get funding? Sometimes it's how do you grow your business? What we really know is if it's how you grow your business, then you will get funding anyway. Every single investor works on the same principle. Find a startup that's growing at 200% plus, and that has a really big market, and that has a team that have the ability to be able to build something that can be defended to a certain extent. But the truth is, if you're growing fast enough, in itself, that is the best defense, right? People like to pick on small people. They don't like to pick on big people. Apple don't spend every minute of every day expecting to be taken over by someone else. They built a great product, then they built a moat, and then they managed to secure that moat. And then they know they buy themselves 10 years or 5 years or 10 years to make sure that they can keep on innovating so that they just don't lose it because they had a Kodak moment, right? Now, if it's on funding, we might talk about things like how do you pitch? What should you pitch? I have actually very strong views on that, even though it's not what we're going to talk about today. I have very strong views based on someone I used to recommend, but now I'm wondering if the aggressive tactics are as valuable as I would have thought they were before. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about growth, and we're going to talk about a very, very important aspect of growth, which is branding. And if we had gone back like 5, maybe 10 years, it could have been argued that branding was separate to go to market. It's a part of it, but there were two different things. I now believe, I kind of always believed this, but I can now say it without any argument, that branding is the most important thing, period. Nothing is more important. If you have your branding and your messaging right, that means you're speaking to the right ideal customer profile. That means that you're telling them the right message in the shortest period of time. That means that that message is reinforced as much as possible, and that that message resonates for something that is transformative for that customer. Then you got them. You got them. You just got to not do stupid stuff at that stage, right? And then you reinforce with content marketing, and you reinforce with outbound, and you reinforce by making sure that your customers are continually being told that message over and over and over again, right? So you care about brand. As usual, we'll have a phenomenal branding genius. Well, as usual, we have a genius who's going to join. This time, it's going to be a phenomenal branding genius. We've got Prathish Nair who's going to come in. Prathish has been doing this for like years and years and years and years. I can actually move to decades and decades, almost 2 decades, on branding. So we're going to have a really good conversation about how you brand yourself properly. Now, as I bring Prathish in, look, there's 2 things I want to say here. The first thing is that when I speak about branding, it's not just branding about customers, it's also branding to investors. So what we'll look at today is like, how do you make sure that that brand is out there? But also, I want to share with you something fascinating that we did last week. And it was LA week. We had a ton of folks that came in, and we did a live branding session with one of our companies, Matchbook. Matchbook has an amazing product, but they've been around for 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 years. Too long for venture capitalists. Venture capitalists will look at it and say, we want to make sure that we see fast growth. And venture capitalists are not that smart. And so because they're not that smart, they can't see past the hype. And what they just focus on is, do we have a racehorse? So if the story is not a Hollywood blockbuster, you know the great thing about brand? We just write a new story, right? They just want to see a good movie with a good action hero or a good romantic end or a good. What they don't want to see is a story in a movie that nobody else wants to watch. So, yeah, today we're gonna talk about movies, right? And it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Today is Diwali, so an important day in India. So I'm in
Yeah, I
Bangalore.
know. Actually, I was on with one of my guys this morning. It's fantastic. I was actually on them. I was saying, "You are looking so handsome today." And he's like, "Yeah, it's Diwali." You know, Diwali is actually being made a national, not an official national holiday, but an unofficial holiday in California this year for the very first time.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to hear. So, wish you all a happy Diwali. You will hear some background noises, so please bear with me on that. But I think it's important. I like the way you started, to talk about brands. I've been doing this for some time, and across various categories, and I always resonate with that story, saying that tell me about your brand. Before you start anything, what is the brand, what is the category, who are you talking to, and why should I care? With these things not aligned, you would keep on telling something to someone. It's like, I give the perfect example. Let's say I'm sitting next to you on a plane, and we're going to land in 2 minutes time. What do I tell you? What do you do? So you just have, I call it less than an elevator pitch. It's like few seconds. You got to get the person engaged, right? To get them interested in you. So you got to have a fantastic story. Better still, if you could use one word, people have got you. It's like, I do this. Or I say, wow, that's so cool. I've heard about your brand. It does it all, and all of that. So I think the brand is probably one of the most important pivots, in today's times, because marketing as such has got so complex, so complex, that it's a whole bunch of messages, whole bunch of overexposure, and how are you going to stand out of that, right? And that becomes a massive, massive challenge. Oh, my shirt is all shiny, please.
You
It's
look
all the
amazing. I actually, you know what? I actually just want to take it back. Like, there are probably a million people around the world who believe that, like, something that is special for them should be a national holiday, right? But Diwali became a national holiday and one of the biggest ones in all of India. Like, what was the brand that holiday has that makes it so special? Because I think if we move it miles away from startup and we move it towards national holidays, and why is one national holiday so incredibly special?
right.
Then we can then
So
bring it back over to startups again.
absolutely, absolutely. So this is a cultural phenomenon, right? And this is rooted in our ancestral history, which talks about a deity who we worship, and we revere him a lot. So he was, we're talking about Lord Rama, and he fought an important battle in Sri Lanka, and he walked his way back all the way to India, and all the way to Ayodhya. And so that is considered as the day he reaches his kingdom. It is celebrated as, Deepavali. Deepavali would actually translate into, the lamps, right? Deepavali. So it's like the festival of lights, so to say. So every home in India is actually lit up with these lamps, and I have lamps all over me. All over my place, and so are all the neighbors. So it's about. If we were to put it from a cultural context, it's about darkness over, darkness getting, fought over by light. So darkness wins. Darkness loses over light. Light wins everything, and that's primarily what it is. There has to be a villain, and there has to be a hero. So the light becomes the hero, and hence Deepavali.
And it's very much a hero story, really. If you look at it, like, we're talking about like one day where people put some lights in the windows, but the lights are not in the lights are not the thing. The thing is the entire story that sits behind it. Like every brand, there has
Correct.
to be a hero. A hero has to have gone through incredible sacrifice. There have to be amazing detractors against the potential of making it. And even then, when the hero makes it, the hero has to go through an impossible journey. And then people have to see a deeper meaning inside the journey of what happened, as far as allowing themselves to rise to a better place than where they were before. It's really beautiful. And it's really the story behind every brand on a far lower level, right? Because what happens is when you have a brand that truly resonates with people, that emotionally has them feeling like they become a better person, they've changed, they have they have evolved, they have been transformed. Like people on the day of Diwali feel like they've been transformed from the previous day. On the previous day, they were like Brian or Ash or anybody, but like on that day of Diwali, they have everything changed from the first thing in the morning. And I think that's the incredible thing about brand. In Ireland, obviously things are far more superficial. So we just had St. Patrick's Day, but
Yes.
again, the story behind St. Patrick was about St. Patrick's driving the snakes out of Ireland. Now, did St. Patrick really drive the snake? I'm not sure. Like there's like a bunch of folks. I'm sure there's a few snakes that would say, "Oh, I didn't get driven out of Ireland. Like he didn't get me." But the story of the snakes and the serpents and the terrible fear that people had, and this great hero stepping up, who's a man who is wearing a white cloak with a green top on it, with a cross in the middle, and he said, I stand here for the people." And then suddenly, thousands of years later, all over the world, not even in Ireland. And so maybe like it's such a beautiful moment to actually think about, what is a brand? Is a brand a couple of words? Is a brand a color? Is a brand being able to make it in a very succinct way? Or is a brand a way to elevate people from the place that they were? And I don't care if you're creating like a children's playground that makes people feel different when their kids coming in. I read about a restaurant in New York this morning where, forget a waiting list, forget about like 2, 3, 4 years to get in there. It is an art and a science to get one of the 75 tables in New York. Like, what is it that created that brand and made it so special that when somebody sits in one of those seats, they haven't entered a restaurant like the other 5 million restaurants in the greater state. They have entered into an art gallery and they've become one of the art pieces.
Right. I mean, we've been talking about brands forever. And there are some fantastic examples, like you said, where you take, it's not so a mark or a name or a color or or a certain way of doing things. These are all what I would say as, the building blocks of a brand. But that's not what a brand is. The brand is literally, I mean, if I were to put it in a simple term, it's a gut feeling that you get, saying that I know something about this. So how do you get to that gut feeling? So it's, when you see the four rings of Audi, or the mark of a Porsche car or a Ferrari, it's a whole lot of things. It's like you get an instantly a gut feeling saying that I know this. This is about racing cars. I know this is about red. I know this is about a flat six engine. I mean, I'm just talking about connoisseurs. So it's about when we develop brands. So we broadly do two kinds. One is uh, if existing brands are there and they need to go through an evolution, we talk about how do you go about doing that. That's one part of it. Or on the other hand is about creating new brands. And when you create new brands, there are these category codes that you have to be so cognizant about. It could be a whole lot of things, and this is where we get into consumer psychology, semiotics, where the aspiration of the brand, of the founder is, or the team would be, where are some of the competitors, what they are doing, what is happening across the world. Is this something that is isolated to only one part of the world, or are there similar examples from around the world? So what we used to earlier, we used to probably take a month or so. But over the last, let's say, 4 to 5 years, when we start creating, work around the brands, we started seeing it becoming more intense. Now, I've seen that especially on new brands, you would have to research all the key markets, because the globe is a single unit. You can't say that you're going to operate in isolation. You can't say I'm a product meant for India. I'm a product meant for California. I'm a product which is meant for New York. You have to think about your customer. The customer is a global person. He can find information about everything in an instant. And if he is going to find out everything in an instant, you better do your homework. So we go into such depths in terms of finding out what are these category codes, and then only commence the project. In fact, there are projects where we have mentioned, if you're not willing to work on a certain amount of category codes, we won't do the project. So that becomes, because what would happen is that the onus of that brand comes on to you, saying that, look, this is the team that worked on it, and look at the trouble that they've got into. So very, very clear is to understand the like I mentioned, the category codes, the semiotics, the cultural aspect, the global competition, the global market, and then of course the aspirations of all the stakeholders.
Yeah, I think also I love this question. This isn't the first question that came up, but it's the one that I think just leads in very beautiful. And we're gonna have, like, we got a bunch in here about Diwali as well. Everybody's got an opinion on this, which I like. But I think this is a super interesting place to start. And then we're gonna come back into Diwali, and then we're gonna also talk about a bunch of other brand areas as well. I've always had the belief that when we start a business, any business, it's not the business. It's a little bit like the whole New York sizzle of the steak. Like, it's not the steak, it's the sizzle, right? That's what you're selling. And so when you start a business, you don't know how the customer is going to react. So you can say, yeah, it has a soul, but it kind of has your soul, but that's good and it's bad, right? Because it's an untested soul. It's a little bit like, it has my soul because I believe this is what's required in the world for startups, which is why I built Expert Dojo. But is Expert Dojo like the answer? No, it's not the answer. It can't possibly be at the beginning. We haven't tested it with anybody. We don't know. So I'm gonna keep it very spiritual today, but I really want to get your opinion on this. I think that brand is an open soul. So it's a soul that enters because it does reflect, like a brand, certainly at the beginning for a nerdy straight startup, like it's just you. So whoever you are, if you're like a dude or a dudette and like you built this company, it's you. Like you're just pretending another company name, but it's you. But what should happen is that soul should be there for one purpose, and that one purpose is to transform the souls that need to be transformed. It's not to convince those souls that your soul is the one to follow. It's to be open, to be able to transform the souls who need to be transformed. And I think that's a very, very, very different thing, because what it does is it teaches you for the very beginning to be very quiet and to listen an awful lot more. And then the more you listen, the more you adapt, right, to those other souls. And then the more that you adapt, the more you create something that those souls need. Like I would argue that, Indian people need Diwali. Like we all need that, whatever it has that's come to us. It's a thing that when we reach that day, we all feel better about ourselves. We're smiling, we're happy, like it's done something to us. And so it's not so much how our soul is transformed as how much we transform the other souls. But I would love to get I think it's a beautiful question. Do you believe every brand has a soul, something beyond its products and profits? How can founders identity and nurture that soul from day one? I would love to explore this question because it's awesome.
You know, wonderful, wonderful question. I should say, I mean, trying to, bring in a spiritual side to this. I mean, finally, it's about, when you are developing a product, it's about giving something into society so that people enjoy it, people buy it, people feel elated, people feel good about it, etc. Now, what we've seen, over the last many of the interventions where we've done, and of course, I'll try to draw it like a triangular piece. Uh, One which just says, what are some of the must-haves And what are some of the things that are valued, which comes in a, the above the triangle? And what are some of the unique factors that completely sets you apart? Now, this is where most of the brands will have to really distill the essence or the soul of what you're trying to do to peg you to become something absolutely unique. Now, very interestingly, like you mentioned, every person or every brand has got a fingerprint, the so to say, uh, what makes them special. Now, the idea is for us to clearly develop a system where we know that, look, in a category such as this, these are what the category would demand as must-haves, saying without which I'm not even going to consider you, right? Saying that these characteristics are a must-have, followed with what would be valued, saying that wow, this would be really nice to have because the others are not doing it. If you are able to give me one or two aspects that are way above what the others are doing, I will truly love that fact. I will consider you. But that's still not enough. Now, that's where the small absolute tip of the iceberg or tip of the triangle comes in. That's what makes you unique. Saying, what is that something that is so unique in you that I would say, oh my God, I love it. You are telling me everything that I want to hear. You make me feel good. You make me think, I want to know you. I want to know you better. I want to buy you. I want to experience it. Now, so as a brand communication side of it, you can do all of this. But then comes the other bit of the triangle where the experience comes in, saying that I did, after all what you've told me about yourself, I did purchase you. But something went wrong in my experience. So so while we matching the characteristics of the brand to the product, we have to also match the experience. And if the experience and the proposition match well, you have a close and you have a believer who wants who loves you and who will end up talking about you to others.
Yeah, they
And
want you to win. Yeah,
they
that's
want you
so.
to win.
They
They want
want
you to
you to
win.
win.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So when we start projects, right? When we have clients coming to us and say that if you want to have mass market success, the first rule is you cannot have it.
Yeah,
So yeah, there is
it's a
it's
great one.
not possible to. So it's, you must have heard of the famous bell curve. You have to start talking to people who are open to listening. And if you're going to have to, so it's basically the adoption, the bell curve when it comes to adoption. And it's very, very strange. The large majority and the late majority are not even going to hear you, consider you at all, till the other two groups have, started trying it. So you have to be so careful saying that what are you going to say that is so different from a communication point of view and from an experience point of view that somebody would say, wow, I want to try this guy. And here is where you can see the myriads and myriads of brands that have tried and failed, and they would ask, why did I fail? And you would know either the communication was too amplified and the experience was not there, or you communicated something altogether wrong, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there
So
was a great there was a great example. So I think actually I'll try and also put that in my also very simple thought process is you have to have a soul, which means for me soul is purpose, right? That's what it is. And I think if there's no purpose to build something, then it's kind of going to get boring. And it seems such a shame to actually do something as difficult as startup if it's going to be boring. It might as well be amazing and passionate and filled full of purpose for yourself. Like you have to have that, but it has to be transformative for the people that that purpose is for. Like, I think one of the things is here is like profits, nothing to do with profits. You should make as much money as you possibly can. Like, it's not about not making money or making money. If you don't want to make money, no problem, call it a charity. But that's not what this show is. This show is about how do you build venture backable unicorns. That's what you want to do. I'm a big believer that, like, as soon as you put your oxygen mask on and you got tons of money in your bank account, you can do a lot more good than when you're poor. So get rich. Okay, that's the first step, right? And if you're building a great brand and your brand is for a venture backable unicorn, massive purpose so that you stick at it and you want to keep adapting and changing and fixing so you can get to the transformative impact piece. But I think, just to going back to Diwali, if there's no lights in the window, then who the hell is going to know it's a public holiday? Okay. So you have to have the experience built into it as well for those people. It's not just good enough that it's on a deck or a business plan, or if I get one more person who talks to me about a stealth project, I'm going to shoot myself. Like, you have to make sure that they understand the importance of the transformation. There was like two examples, one really good, which makes me really sad, and one really bad that makes me really happy. And the bad one was, there was a rebranding done, which was very famous over here recently, which was a very old brand that had been around for years, which was a picture of, like, I think it was a farmer, and he's in front of like a
Oh,
barrel,
yes.
standing by the
I did
barrel.
hear that. Yes. I forget the name of the brand.
And they got a branding company in, and the branding company upgraded it, and then everybody left, like all of the users left, because what they did was they got so focused on the experience and so unfocused on the purpose that the transformation didn't matter anymore because they had missed the equation. And I think if we take a company that does it really, really, really well, is like Nike. Nike is, as soon as I put my Nike shoes on, I'm a champion. Like, that's it. That's their whole brand. Is, you put our clothes on. You want to do a fake? Are you kidding me? Why? You want to be a fake champion? No problem. You should buy that stuff over in Thailand. But if you want to be a champion, if you want to put this on and be the greatest champion that you can be for the 45-minute run or the 25 minutes in the gym or wherever you go to, you do it with us. So I think I like how you're talking about, like, the experience piece has to be there. The lights have to be on in every single window. You have to have the purpose of doing it, or you'll never be able to last till the end. And you have to have the transformative impact as well.
Right. So when we we look at projects, like I mentioned earlier, it is about evolution, not reinventions. You have to understand, for legacy brands, that's very, very, very critical. I think Gap made a big mistake very recently, where they went and rebranded themselves, like like reinvented themselves altogether. There's a difference. And I think for a brand like Gap, and for that matter, even Nike is going through some amount of issues, and I could see
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of stories around how their market share has fallen down. And because the consumer is very, very interesting. The consumer is on top of, this is where we have to understand that the consumer of today, the customer that we have, is phenomenally intelligent, phenomenally intelligent. Now he has to know. So I want to talk about two brands in the in the footwear space that have done a phenomenal job. One was On Shoes, and the other one is Hoka. Both of them talked about something so strategically small, but it made a massive difference. They just gave, so they talked about a technology cloud. I think in the case of On, it is cloud tech, which just talks about a particular type of sole that gives you that extra bounce. Nike actually started that with Alpha Fly. It had a carbon fiber lift and all of that. But somewhere, that became a little controversial, especially when it came to marathon, etc. That if you're wearing an Alpha Fly shoe, you would actually be banned. But somewhere they lost that story of someone who wants a better performance out of his shoe. So, like, it's nothing. It's actually ridiculous. Like, somebody who runs a kilometer, let's say, in 10 minutes, wants to do it in 9.5. That's all. That's all. He wants to win against himself. And
Yeah.
I've done that. I've done that myself. And I've seen that when I wore my own shoes, as opposed to wearing another shoe, I actually did faster. Nobody knows about it. But I said, what is this? How did this happen? And that just gives you, a set of boosting that, wow, I want to go 9 next time. So what do I need to do to get 9? Nobody has intervened in this entire exercise. But the very fact that I knew the small instance, that made me, prompt me to buy. So, very clear for legacy brands is to understand where is the evolution taking place. Without understanding the evolution, you are just shooting in the dark. So it's not like, the Nike customer is looking for jackets, or he's looking for caps, or he's looking for, another pair of Jordans. We got to understand where the revolution is taking place and move to that direction. So that's one aspect of it.
I love that. And this is such a good conversation, right? Because we are celebrating Diwali. Like you
Yeah.
haven't even taken a break off here. We're right in. And I really, I love it. I fully expected this, of course, that we're going to get like proper descriptions of what Diwali actually represents. And so I really like this. It's
Oh
about
yeah,
light
you got
spreading
that.
darkness. Awesome. In branding terms, how can a brand rediscover in a light its true purpose? I'm going to go back to relationships and marriage, right? I kind of always bring everything back to, relationships and marriage are like some kind of intimate interaction in some sense. It would be like if you're with a couple for 20 years and you ask the same question, and the other part of your couple is like, really, like, you don't know, like, we haven't left the house in 20 years, like, you don't know, really, like, you know what, it's one step. And so the thing is, what's been really nice here, even at the beginning, is just the codification of what this thing is. It has to be your purpose. If your purpose is gone, your marriage is gone, your relationship is gone. It doesn't matter what transformative impact that you are capable of doing, because you will never, ever, ever be able to follow it through, to do it all the way through. And if you don't put the lights in the windows, then it doesn't matter if you have the transformative impact, because you don't have the experience that's being built around it. And the lights in the windows for founders is everything. It's like your content marketing. It's how you're engaging with your customers. It's that restaurant in New York that only has 75 seats. Like, if you have to wait 3 years to go in there and the experience feels like it's just a restaurant with good pasta, then yeah, right? So, the same with customers as with your couple. If you just do it internally without focusing on the other part, you're wasting your time. There's nothing there. You got to go deep into what they need, and you got to ask yourself, am I prepared from a purpose level to go through what needs to be gone through, to not just save this marriage, but to make this marriage better than it was at the very beginning? I think that's what great brands do. By the way,
So
I'm fully expecting my wife to call in and like, okay, easy, right? If you did any of this stuff at home, go
yeah, so we,
on.
we all we all have to do that. Anyway, let me try to sum it up in a very short sentence. Cosmetics over, I mean, sorry, anyone who focuses on cosmetics without conviction, it's not going to work, right? So when you find that something that is really worth the evolution, it has to come with a tremendous amount of conviction. If it is just laced with cosmetics, it will fall flat. And we've seen that time and time and again with a whole lot of companies doing cosmetic work. Cosmetics is dead. Nobody cares about your color logo or something that you've done. What is the real purpose? What is the conviction behind that? And how is it that you can consistently follow that through? And it's not through, like you talked about the restaurant. It's very easy to have a fantastic arrangement done, reasonable amount of food. But what's the story? What's the conviction? Why am I having this? What is the purpose of, what is the essence behind it? So conviction is probably the biggest. And the issue with conviction is this, that Many of the companies that we've seen don't want to take it up, and that's where I've walked out of projects. I remember a couple of projects where we have said that doing a cosmetic intervention will only get you this far, but if you do something which is based on conviction. I remember a company which used to manufacture coconut oil, and I remember them saying that don't do a cosmetic change because that'll make you a Me Too brand in the market. Do not do that, or at least we are not the ones going to do that for you. So the intervention went on, and I remember the fights that we have with stakeholders, especially when you believe it. So you have to really believe in it yourself, and then believe in the in the concept, and make the stakeholders probably believe in it more, and then stick to it, saying that look, this is what I believe will take it. And we've seen transformational stories that have phenomenal. And I remember, if I put it in simple terms, a $50 million company growing to a 400, $500 million company in 4 to 5 years' time. And it's just that very fact that they stuck to a very strong conviction and a consistent message that can actually go with it. So a cosmetic intervention would have got you a little far, but then it would fall. In fact, I have a favorite saying for cosmetic intervention. So in a consumer market in India, there is something called 1+1. Buy one, get one. So I said that if you do a cosmetic intervention, you will become a buy one, get one.
That's so beautiful. We actually did one in here. I wasn't going to do this, but I am going to. I'm going to get in a little while. Not yet. We have like 15 minutes left. But I'm going to get Kishley to show where we went to as a brand, where I think will really amplify what I mean by you can be as extreme as you want to be here. But these questions are so awesome. I think we should have Diwali every day because these are some of the best branding questions I've ever seen. Like, is rebranding just design, or is it a bit like Diwali clearing emotional clutter too? Like, it's such a great question because we get so biased on our own brand. We're like looking at the colors, we're looking at the messaging. We get so used to it. It's a little bit like our bedrooms, and then somebody will walk in when we're kids and be like, "Your bedroom's a friggin' mess." And we're like, "Says who?" Everybody except you, right? Because we're so biased in there. So I don't even know if there's anything such as rebranding, or is it just evolved branding to your point? Like, there's never a rebranding. There's just these moments, I suppose, when you're better at listening to what your consumers and future consumers are telling you, and your branding just evolves based on that. But you want to speak a little bit to what Kushi's saying there?
Yeah, so very clear. There is no rebranding as such, and it's a very poor choice of words altogether. I think we have to understand like I said, look at it from a consumer point of view. Like saying that if I am the consumer, what would I expect this particular product or this category or this company to be talking to me to make me consider you? And the codes are today. It's not what resonated yesterday. It's not what resonated 20 years ago. It's about today. And this is where companies, brands, and everyone need to listen to consumers. Like say, what are they saying? And I know, we've ourselves done some work. I run a D2C brand called Waterful. Very interestingly, it's a plant-based functional drink mix. I'll just show you a pack of this, and it comes in these wonderful sachets, that you can add to what I was just taking a sip of that. Very, very interestingly, there are codes that we found that, first of all, when we started this, we understood what the consumer is actually going through, and then understood there is a massive gap within that, and it's not fulfilled in the right manner. But again, so it's about a year and a half since we launched. And then we realized that we have more than 100,000 customers. What is it? So I talk to customers, like I take calls, we ask them why have you purchased, and there were certain codes that you can, and this would come only if you have hands and feet wet, literally. You have to be on the ground talking to customers. And then you would understand that there are certain codes that they are talking about, and we haven't got it right. That's where you improve. Otherwise, you would fall flat. So
Yeah.
many of the companies and brands don't do this. They expect consumer research to happen, and in fact, I'll give you live examples of this. I currently consult with a Mediterranean country, and on stage, I asked the tourism minister, "Could you tell me how many tourists are there in your country right now?" He just looked at me. He said, "I don't know." So he has information of last year's, and
Yeah.
he's basing his decisions of last year's data today. I said, isn't that absurd that you don't have information about your customers now?
Yeah.
Where are they? Who are they? What are they doing?
100%.
Exactly. So today's marketeers, today's brands have to understand from today's perspective, and how much of time are you investing to find that. So you have to be on top of game. You, yeah,
No, I'm saying,
yeah.
listen,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
a,
Listen.
I'm acting as your soundboard here. I'm just saying everything you're saying here is that people don't listen. It's not even here. You've worked with some of the biggest legacy names, of course, which you have. Like, how do they evolve without losing your soul? But what you're saying is, for God's sake, stop being so self centric. You're self centric at the beginning because it's about you creating something. But then actually, it leads to this beautiful place, which is another question, which is, do you think founders create brands, or brands slowly create the founder? Which is another gorgeous question, because what you're saying is, if you're a great listener, and then you are an amazing entrepreneur, the brand will create you over time.
I have this most amazing story, and India probably is one of the best examples to test new products. And I'll tell you, because the way India has adopted direct to customer, I don't think any other market in the world has. We can make or bake a brand within months in India. You can spend all the money you have, you can get it endorsed by the biggest celebrities, but it will fall flat on your face. Very interesting story for us. When we started, this brand Waterful, we were told that you need to have a very fancy website, and you need to spend, and we did spend. We spent a lot of money, 25,000 dollars in developing a fancy website. And then 6 months on, I found 99% of all traffic never visited any other page other than checkout. They don't care. They just want to know that, wow, you have an interesting product. If your proposition is good, I want to buy you. Then comes the experience piece of it. They
Yeah.
don't care about the founder.
Yeah.
Of course, they would be eventually saying that, oh, who's the guy behind this? But today's customer has no time. Like, for instance, if I ask you, do you know who's the founder of the On shoes that has made such a dent on Nike or Hoka? We don't even know the guy. He's a Swedish guy, and I don't even know the other guy. But it's the product that we care about, the product, and we talk to our friends about a product. So I think, I really honestly don't care about legacy. Founder, all of that is a separate story. Look at what Apple is going through right now. Very clearly, there is clearly an era. There is a post Steve Jobs era and a pre Steve Jobs era,
Yeah.
where everything was
They
literally
don't
something.
care.
Yeah, exactly. So now consumers have become super sharp. So this is what I'm saying. For me, or at least for what I would recommend, is get consumers who love you and get to them. It's their love that actually determines the make or break of any company.
Yeah, I love that. I want to finish. I think we've covered. There's a beautiful. This is again another beautiful like
Diwali
thingy which
code.
we put through here. I want to throw my brand journey, which I would like to put in here as my finish of it. And then I would love to get like your brand journey of where it's taken to the perfect brand. Now, everybody who's been listening, you've got gold here. You have a very, very visual representation of Diwali as your bar. Like that's your bar with consumers. Diwali isn't. You don't have to have the prettiest and the perfect and the best. But you have to be present and you have to be a part of it, right? So, and you also know that the purpose ties into the transformative impact. If the transformative impact starts to get lost, whether it's Nike, a new brand, or anything else, then you need to listen more to build something more important, right? Or you end up as Kodak, and you know that if your lights are not in the window with every single ounce of your being, then it doesn't matter how much you're transforming because you're going to be a tree in the woods. People are going to fall. So I want to tell you about our brand story really fast, which I haven't shared before, but I think it really will tie into that other question that said, does a founder create a brand or does a brand create a founder? And then I would love to get yours that just finishes with the greatest piece of gold that you have. So when we started Expert Dojo at the very beginning, the entire objective was very simple. It was that we felt that venture capital was broken, but that's a very bland thing to say. We felt that because the venture capital was becoming more concentrated with fewer players, then the entire startup community was being manipulated so that the companies that were being built were not companies that transformed customers. They were companies that made venture capitalists rich. That was just the entire principle. And we thought to ourselves, what if we could truly get entrepreneurs and actually help them build based on customer love and affection and brand and outbound and all those wonderful things? How about if we brought growth hacking to venture in a very strong way? And then we set out in our journey and we started investing in companies. And from then to now, we've invested in 300 companies and results
Wow.
are going very well and we're very happy. And we're going heavy into India. If we have less than 1,000 companies in India within 4 years, I would be very, very, very disappointed. I'm very, very big on India. But here's where the brand evolved. Because at the beginning, the brand felt like a brand that served us. We had this tremendous insight. We had this purpose, of course, but the transformative impact was, well, we have this insight that we can do better with startups, which means we're going to make a lot of money, which means startups should be very grateful that they know us. And actually, so should other investors. Like that's what evolves without anybody thinking that evolves. It's what happens as a product starts to get successful. And then I started to step back and say, well, hold on a second. If we continue on this path, we're going to build a very different brand than we ever wanted to build at the beginning. Something has changed and shifted as we've gone forward. And so we need to stop and understand what that is. And so for a lot of this year, we spent our time listening. We didn't spend our time investing the way we had. The previous year, we did 80, 90 investments. This year, we only did a couple of investments because we spent all of our year listening. And we decided that actually Expert Dojo started off as a community service. That does not mean nonprofit. We should all make lots of money, but it meant it was for the community to change. And so we made a decision that all future monies that we would bring in from LPs would be shared with the community. And now that we've built up a really good value in Expert Dojo, we're going to dilute Expert Dojo. We're going to raise the money inside Expert Dojo. We're going to raise everything that we do will either be through partnerships where we bring people in places like India, or it will be done inside the dojo where people will be allowed to own Expert Dojo. And that money will then be used to put into companies. So Kishle, you can put it up. I think anybody just look at the WeFunder campaign. We did this before, but we did it kind of for fun. This here is our entire, you'll notice things in here as you go down the page, things like manifesto, things like vision, things like mission, where we're going in the future, what we're building in the future, why we're building in the future. I think he's brought up our comments page rather than anything else. But is that the comments page or is it?
He's on updates.
You're on updates, buddy. But it's a good effort because it's close. But look, if anybody looks up Expert Dojo, WeFunder, you'll see what it looks like to evolve brand. Exactly what you're hearing today. We're not rebranding. We're calibrating. We're making sure that the thing that we wanted to get built doesn't get lost. You just click on overview. There you go, Kishle. Just on there you. Oh,
No,
yeah,
he's
there you
still
go.
on update. Yeah.
He's okay. He got it right. So
Yeah.
as you go down, you see the team, you see what we're doing, you see everything. And I just want that my biggest piece of advice is that, like, no matter how perfect a brand is, it's a little bit like a car that's a degree wrong on the steering wheel all of the time. And if you let go of the steering wheel, it's going to bring you to a very different place than where you were going forward. And you have to spend that time really listening and being honest with yourself about how transformative your venture capital fund is, your drink, your power drink is, your Nike product is, your Apple product is, or you end up in a place where you might actually have a very nasty false positive where people are still buying, but not because they love your brand anymore. They've already started to dislike it. You just haven't noticed. And so that's, Kishley will put that in chat so people can have a look at it. But what are your thoughts on this? And you can take that down, Kishley. Thank you.
Yeah. So let me again try to give you a sentence for this, and I kind of stick to that because it's very important. That enduring brands are built on truths and not tactics. Right now, if you were to look at the VC market, it's tactics. They don't care. Honestly, they
Yeah.
don't care. Now that's where you're trying to make a difference, saying that you do care. Now, there is a bizarre thing that is happening in the world, and I have noticed this, that people need to talk about failures. And I found this more fascinating, that whenever I write something that I failed at, gets bigger traction than that I'm successful about. So if I say, I've done XYZ and this is my success, not many people engage with it. But the minute I start talking about, oh my God, I screwed up or I didn't do this right. So brands that are, anchored in truths or authenticity tend to do better. So I can see the VC worlds are going to come under pressure because they are now, you can see, I mean, what are they? They just come in at a time. They want a 5-year exit, three times, their investment, 3x, and they finally want to go into an IPO and become billionaires. That's not going to work. That's not going to work in the long run, right? So, if I were to probably advise Expert Dojo, you got to put out a couple of failure stories. It'll be wonderful, of saying that, listen, we really believed in this brand, but it was a fantastic category. It didn't do well. At the same time, post your successes as well. You will see the impact of that, and I've started noticing this across various things. So, for instance, when now a movie is made, how the movie is made gets as much views as the movie itself. So people are wanting the truth behind things, saying that, okay, tell me more. I want to know what did you get right, what did you get wrong. And if there are more no's, then they think that you've done something credible. And I think, again, going back to Steve Jobs, he did that. He did that. He always did that. He talked about failure. He talked about things I didn't get right, things that went wrong. And then, look, all these things have gone wrong, but I've got you something nice. It works. It works because what happens is that it creates a sort of a bond, because it's embedded in truth. And when you are embedding yourself in truth, it's your entire thing becomes about authenticity. And then it automatically kind of stays out. But anything that is built around just, I mean, I think Elon Musk is another great example. The
Yeah.
number of failures with with the rocket company and the Starlink. I mean, the number of times it's fallen, like people have asked him. So he keeps on propagating that. And then it comes down to sorry it comes down to the success. So then you start seeing, saying that, okay, look, this guy has gone through hell. He's developed something which is so unique, and then we believe him, we love it.
I love this. And like, and I'll bring it back. It's so beautiful. And I just want to underline this, like, truth over tactics. Always, like, live that journey and you'll find people will do it. And I'm going to bring it back to, in homage to Diwali, I'm going to bring it back to here and say, it's not about everybody having, it's not about each person wanting to be the best dressed, the best looking, the best. It's about everybody being the best version of themselves on that evening to show the respect and love for everything that's around them. Like that's what it represents. And as a founder, you need to step out every single day and say, do I have those truth over tactics? Am I really coming into this as someone who can fix something? And if not, how do I create something which is really better? And then you continually measure that, you know, the like as we've done with the calibration to make sure, are we on track or have we slightly fallen off what we wanted to do before? And if we are off track, or if we're on track, are we spending 70, 80% of our time listening to the people that we need to transform so we can actually build the transformation that those people deserve? That's the only way that we build what we're going to do. And then we continually go back and say, do we have the purpose to be able to build it? Are we able, do we have the team and the ability and the product to be able to transform it? And are we going to put lights in the window every single minute of every single hour of Diwali? And we will
Right.
there. My friend, how can people contact you for anybody who's looking to build a brand and put anything together? Your advice is spectacular as
Sure.
always.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm on LinkedIn, so Prathish.nair should be there. I think that's the easiest way. Otherwise, I run a brand called Waterful that also has a couple of links. So very interestingly, I also wanted to talk about the way AI is actually, changing things. Very, very interestingly, for me, for us, it actually, so for instance, packaging design, AI made a massive, massive difference. And we used a tool called Midjourney, and what would have taken us a month of work were actually done in less than a week's time and with half one tenth of the resources. So very, very clearly we are seeing.
And we could also spend another, we could spend an hour on this as well. I just have one comment. I think that AI in many ways will make brand a lot the same. And actually what we've been talking about today is the spiritualism of building something truly meaningful and really special and right from the heart. And when you do that, and you like, there's no shortcuts that, like, I don't know, man, I'm so unsure on this. I know all of the values of AI and everything that's being built, but the human soul is an amazing special thing. And when you allow people to go through the journey of everything you said, which is the truths over tactics, and like authentically going in and finding out where is the transformation, and am I still on track to try and do that, you can get there great. I'm voting to keep Diwali as the star of this movie. That's it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
First of all, I think Diwali is a great example. Literally, I mean, if you were to take it in an everyday life point of view, it's about darkness and light, right? So when you go through the chaos of darkness, where you don't know where you're going, you just see a streak of light and you go after it. That's exactly what is a brand, right? It's darkness everywhere, and probably Diwali is a very powerful message in that sense. Do you know how to spot the light? Do you know that's the right light? I mean, it's darkness everywhere. You might just fall. In fact, the next step you take, you will fall because you're in darkness. Now you just go after that one belief, like your streak of light comes, and you say, I'm going to go after this because I believe that this is the truth. And you go there, and it's paradise, possibly.
And that's the only place we can finish. I
Yes,
love it.
absolutely.
Great show. Amazing. Awesome. Everybody, you had a treat today. You got it all straight from the man himself. Please go back and enjoy Diwali. I appreciate you. Really appreciate you being on, especially on this very special day. And and hopefully we'll continue. And as we build in India, we're going to build some amazing brands together.
Absolutely. I think India is shining, and we would love to work with the US markets because there are sensibilities that the US understood many, many years ago. And that sensibility is just coming literally in terms of knowledge through your channels, and Expert Dojo probably could make a massive, massive impact, becoming completely different from the rest of the guys. And I think that itself is a pivot. That's saying that if you work with authentic brands, where it's all not just cosmetics. And if you can filter through that, you can be far different from any of the guys that we deal with currently, literally.
I'm bringing the Irish. That's what I'm
Of
doing.
course. All right. Thank you so
Okay, my
much and
friend.
best of luck, and would love to
Take
be
care.
associated with you. And if there are any questions,
You're
please
the best.
do, send me a mail or you can be in touch with us.